Hello class, group 17, and we're doing parents for physically active children. And PPAC's main goal is to increase awareness about physical activity and resources in San Diego community in children in grades K through 5. For our evaluation question, we decided to use a bivariate, which takes into account the differences between a children's BMI and how physically active they are, and also do students' knowledge about physical activity differ based on schools that had PPAC and other schools that did not have PPAC. For our conceptual model, and we used a social cognitive theory, which basically takes into account of behavior, such as knowledge, skills necessary to perform the behavior, environmental factors, such as influence and individuals and groups, personal factors, and such as children's expectations, self-efficacy, reinforcements, which lead to overall increase in physical activity, which we want for this program.
For some of our methods, in our research evaluation design, we use quasi-experimental with a pre-test, post-test design with no randomization. In our experimental group, we had our intervention. In our comparison groups, we didn't. For our sampling procedures, we used convenience sampling, which includes accessible subjects meeting some criterion. They need to live in the San Diego community, attend a San Diego elementary school, and this program is time and cost is efficient, it's cheaper, and we don't make a profit ourselves. For our main variables, our dependent variables depend on how physically active the children are that are enrolled in PPAC become after the program. These include some variables of behavior, skills, knowledge, attitudes, and their BMI. Some of our independent variables are their grade, so if they're in kindergarten through 5th grade, their gender, and the hours that they participate in our program.
Our sample included 24 students. Half of the students were from an intervention group and the other half was not. The intervention group and the non-intervention group had male and female students, each from grades K through 5. We looked at each student's BMI after the study as well as their hours of activity a week.
For the bivariate analysis, we used the t-test to study different group differences involving BMI data. Our intervention is between the children who had PPAC and children who didn't, and it showed that children who did participate in PPAC had an average of at least 5 hours of physical activity within the last week, when compared to the children who were not involved with PPAC had only 1 hour of average in the last 7 days. So PPAC's findings is that females with the intervention had a healthier BMI than the females who did not have the intervention. For the males also had a healthier BMI with the intervention as opposed to the males who did not have the intervention.
Some of PPAC's initial findings are differences in BMI between children who attended PPAC and children who did not. We also noticed a difference between the hours spent per week for physical activity. Children who obtained knowledge through PPAC about physical activity sources in San Diego community were more likely to increase in their physical activity. This graph shows a comparison of hours of physical activity versus BMI in the intervention group and the non-intervention group. The non-intervention group is seen in orange, and the intervention group is seen in blue. There is not a strong correlation shown in the intervention group. This could be due to the very small sample size. Although there isn't a strong correlation, there are noticeable differences between the intervention group and non-intervention group.
In continuing PPAC's findings, compared to baseline after the intervention of PPAC, we saw a decrease in BMI, where in our comparison group there was an increase in BMI. For results and conclusion, PPAC overall was successful in decreasing BMI of students K through 5 and creating habits to become physically active throughout 1 week. PPAC students were involved in at least 4 to 6 hours of physical activity per week.
PPAC's limitations may have a very small sample of students. We may only be comparing 2 different schools. The parental bias towards PPAC may be available. The location of both schools may alter by not having available resources nearby, and the students' demographics may influence their BMI. We would like to thank you for listening to our presentation.